student come to the lecture, you're ready to be surprised.
Beautiful.
So that's because
Beautiful.
element of surprise. You have to be surprised yourself that you thought that's how you thought before.
Beautiful. Ready to be surprised. Allow yourself to be surprised.
That's in a way losing yourself, because whatever you accumulated before, now it's about to be lost.
So that's stage one.
No, to shecht your aliyas and your shleimus. Even my shleimus, I'm ready to shecht. My need for shleimus, my yearning for shleimus. What's shleimus? Shleimus is perfection. The mizbeach itself has to be built from bittul. The Mesiris Nefesh also has to be with bittul. Sometimes I sacrifice, like I said before, I sacrifice myself
Isn't that
because I'm the one who does the sacrifices
right,
in the
what you're
family.
saying.
I'm
If
still.
you're doing the sacrifice, yes.
That's what he says. The mizbeach has to be adama, mit adama.
What material do you use to build it?
No?
From Adama, from Adam, from yourself. That's the mizbeach from Adam.
Okay. Der Rebbe sagt, dass der Yichud Nifl ist durch Teire. Lernen ein Stückel Gemara. Lass mal lernen Teire.
So there is sometimes a good translation that says that I don't remember which translation it was, but it says that Eden were wandering in the Midbar by 40 years. They were in a state of wonder. They were constantly surprised. They were.
Nice. Very nice. They were constantly surprised, there's no question.
Huh?
There's no question. They were constantly surprised, right?
So it's just whatever they had, the ideas of Kodesh Baruch Hu, every time it was like they
Beautiful.
never done before.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, Taya de Yidden. Very, very special Maimer, huh?
Oh, they're all special.
Das ist Emes. Das ist Emes.
I'm a chap.
Did Rebbe, did Alter Rebbe learn with somebody? Did he had Achia Shaloni or Elia Novi coming? Did it have any?
This is higher than Eliyahu Hanavi. It's much deeper than Eliyahu Hanavi.
He's a good, a special teacher.
Thank you. Das darfst du sagen, mein Schwieger, mein Mama, was sagst du mir, mein Weib? Reb Nachum is Shekoyach. We're ready for the transition from Nister to Nigla. The truth is, we're not transitioning. It's all one. That's the truth. It's Alzach. On the level of websites, it's two, but in MS, it's one. That's the truth. The technology doesn't yet have the kalim to be megala that Chassidus and Gemara is ein zach. So maybe we make a hefsek, but it's really the same thing. Just for organized, for the ice, for the kalim, for the binah, for the binah. That's true. You need binah. Man muss haben binah. Seder. Seder. Person must have structure. Yeah. There are souls that are rooted in bittul and they don't have structure. And it doesn't work. The greatest truths have to come into Seder. You see it with artists, creative people. The worst thing they do to themselves is they don't stick to a Seder. All success comes from Seder. The greatest artists, musicians, writers, really brilliant revolutionizers, if they didn't live with a Seder, they woke up, they slept whenever they want. You know, they're up till 5 a.m. and then they sleep for 2 days and then they're up for a week. You know, those types of people. It's ultimately counterproductive. Consistency is the soil where creativity can grow.
Honest, consistent, not consistent.
Right, but consistency, permanence, stability, structure, which is brutal. Waking up at a certain time, going to sleep. It's not fun when you're an artist. when you're a yeke, when you're a structured person, it's great. You go to sleep the same second, you wake up the same second. But if you're a different type of kid, a different type of soul, it's very hard.
Was dit ayeke, aris ayeke?
No.
That's perfect. That's a perfect artist.
How many Yakish artists you know?
Sure.
They say what happens when a Lubavitcher marries a yeke. You have a Mashiach who comes on time. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think we need more shidduchim like that.
What's the feeling after I see this class? Sometimes I feel like raw. Not empty.
Raw.
Raw meaning like it's like the skin is not there. It's sensitive. It's like very raw.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to give up all your preconceived notions and rethink everything. And that's painful.
And beautiful.
It's not pain. It's a joyous.
It's a joy, yeah, raw. You could shed layers. You say after Chiddush you feel raw because you could shed your layers. The Olul can shed all the layers. There's also a good energy in the room.
Yeah.
When Yidden learn Chassidus, there's a healthy energy in the room. You don't feel ego, you don't feel anger, right? You don't feel the regular competitiveness. You don't feel the trying to outsmart the other person. There's a divine energy, so you could feel more safe. You have people who can hug you. I mean, if you allow, I don't mean. Huh?
He gave me a hug.
It's all the same.
Yeah. But isn't all learning a safe harbor in that sense?
Yeah. But sometimes there's learning where the energy is just, I think, more palpable. No.
Thomas, the Torah Lishma between.
Right. Okay, Taya de Yidden. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for allowing yourself to be raw. Not so simple. Talking about being raw, thank you for the connection. The Gemara is discussing, can you drink the 4 cups of wine raw? Mamash raw, undiluted. That's what you mean by raw. Undiluted. So we're holding Kuf Ches Amud Beis. Kuf Ches Amud Beis, right? You know what I think I'm going to finally do what you wanted me to do earlier. It's nice. Was ist eben so unsere Weg nehmen auf das Wetter?
Mich stört es nicht.
I have more embarrassing things I do in life than that.
It's not about embarrassing. It's about
Yeah, I understand.
COVID.
I understand. Okay, you're going to supervise if I do it right. 3 inches. 5 inches.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Kuf Ches Amud Beis, 9 lines from the top. Meisva. Let's remember what happened. Rabbi Yehuda taught in the name of Shmuel that the 4 cups of wine don't need a full revius of wine, but they can have the amount of wine that 1 cup that we use for benching has. When we use a cup for benching, you can have 1 part wine and 3 parts water, because they used to dilute the wine with water. And he said that's how much wine the 4 cups have to have, which the Gemara understood at this point means that the 4 cups together have to have 1 measure of wine and 3 measures of water. That means the 4 cups together have to make up a revius. That's how the Gemara understood it now. He also taught that you're yotzeh if you drink it undiluted. He also taught that you're yotzeh if you drink them simultaneously, one after another. And he also taught that you're yotze if you don't drink the whole cup yourself, but you share it with your family. And the Gemara explains that Rava said, yeah, if you drink the wine undiluted, you're yotze the mitzvah of drinking wine on Yom Tov, but not the mitzvah of cherus, which means you didn't do it in a complete fashion. You did the mitzvah of drinking wine, you did the mitzvah of drinking 4 cups, but it's missing the feeling of liberty because it's so strong and intense, and it was not the common manner for noblemen to drink wine with such intensity. If you drink it simultaneously, yeah, you're yotze the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov and wine, but not the mitzvah of Dalet Kaisis, even if you want to say you're yotze the mitzvah of Dalet Kaisis, but not in the order. And then finally, if you give it to your family to drink, Reb Nachman said, that's fine, but you still have to drink the majority of the cup. The majority of the cup of wine you still have to drink, even if you share it with your family. Okay, that's basically how the Gemara explained the words of Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel.
When he speaks about how strong the wine here is,
Yeah.
it always seems it didn't taste right when it was undiluted. Does it imply that the alcohol content was so strong that people get affected from it? It doesn't seem to come out here.
Yeah, I think the alcoholic content was very, very strong. And they used to have to pour 3 measures of water for 1 measure of wine. If it was a 4-ounce cup, it was 1 ounce of wine and mamash 3 ounces of water. That was mamash how they used to do it. It was pashut. You can drink it, but it was just very, very strong.
But you don't find it in
Huh?
You find it in discussion here that you would affect people so much they couldn't finish the Seder or fall asleep or
Some people maybe know how to drink, so they can do it.
but it's not meant.
Remember, it's only... Right, he's not getting into it. His point is, if you happen to drink 4 cups of wine and they're raw, you're yotze the mitzvah, but you didn't do it in the complete fashion because it wasn't called derech cherus. It's not derech cherus. It's not the way to enjoy wine. It's maybe the way to get intoxicated very fast, but it's not the way to enjoy wine. And the point of Pesach is liberty, freedom, enjoyment, simcha, hana. So Reb Nachman said, but you could share it with your family, but you have to drink the majority of the cup. And here is where the Rishonim diverged in 2 completely different interpretations of the Gemara. Tosfos said, what does it mean the majority of the cup? It just means the majority of a revius. The normal cup was a revius, and you have to drink the majority, just like we say by Kiddush. Just like by Kiddush, you got to drink what we call maloi lugmav, a cheek full of wine. Pesach is exactly the same thing, and it's called Roiv Kais only because it's Roiv of a Revius, and by the regular person, a cheek full is the majority of a Revius. So if a Revius would be 3 ounces, just to use the Shiv Reb Chaim Na, you would have to drink, according to Tosfos, a little more than 1.5 ounces, and you're yotze the 4 cups of wine. Right? You might have to drink the Roiv of a Revius, let's say 1.6, or a little more than 1.5 ounces, you're yotze according to the Shir Reb Chaim Na. The Chazon Ish's shir is 5.3 ounces is a revius. So according to Tosfos, you would have to drink rave of a revius, a cheekful, and you are good. It's mamish like Kiddush. However, many other Rishonim, first and foremost the Ramban, say that's a distortion of the Gemara. The Gemara said, Ishti Rube de Kasa. You got to drink most of the cup. If your cup is 20 ounces, you got to drink more than 10 ounces. And if your cup is 8 ounces, you have to drink more than 4 ounces. It has to be Ruba de Kosa, most of the cup. According to this, Arba Kaisis is completely different than Kiddush. Kiddush needs Malay Lugmav. Even if it's a big cup, you only have to do 1 cheekful, which would basically be a little more than 1.5 ounces according to Reb Chaim Na. Or even according to the Chazon Ish, 5.3 ounces. How much would Malay Lugmav would mean most of a revius?
2 plus.
A little more than 2.5, right? A little less than 3 ounces. Less than 3 ounces. You don't have to do more, which is not a lot. But the Ramban says by the 4 cups of Pesach, you got to drink Roiv Kais. And the difference is an important difference. By Kiddush, the mitzvah is not to drink. By Kiddush, the mitzvah is to make a bracha to Hashem on the wine. Because you're making a bracha, we say you should drink. By Pesach, the mitzvah is not to make a bracha on the wine. The mitzvah is to drink 4 cups of wine. By Kiddush, the mitzvah is not to drink the wine. The mitzvah is to make Kiddush on wine. To make the bracha of Kiddush on wine. It's a very different type of halacha.
Kiddush al Pesach, then what's the shear according to the
So even Kiddush Pesach, since it's one of the 4 cups of wine, would have the bigger shear than the regular Kiddush, where I would have to drink the majority of the cup. That's the shita of the Ramban. According to the Ramban, 2 people could never use the same cup of wine. Right? If I give it to my family, I'm yoitza because I drank the majority, but they're not yoitza because they didn't drink the majority. You can't have 2 people drinking the majority of a cup. It can't work. You can have 50-50, but you can't have 60-60. It's not going to work. 60-40. So according to the Ramban, only I will be able to be yoitza with that cup of wine. According to Tosfos, that's not true. You can have a cup, I could do a cheekful, you can do a cheekful, you can do a cheekful, and you can do a cheekful. So that would be a tremendous difference in how do we understand? How do we understand? I'm sorry, what? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get to Allah in a moment. And according to Tosfos, you would have to say, as some Rishonim say, that perhaps the Chachamim didn't need everyone to have their own cup. Perhaps they can use the cup of their father as long as they're drinking a cheekful of wine. There are even Rishonim who taina that only the balabas has to have a cup of wine. He's the one who has to, and everyone else could listen to him, just like we do by Kiddush. Not everybody has to make Kiddush. There is that shitta. Tosfos brings it, the Raj brings it. Only one man has to drink the 4 cups of wine, and everybody could just listen to his drinking. That's a gewaldike Chiddush. But this is one mahalach, and then there's the Ramban's mahalach. Halacha l'maisa, what we say is that Arba Kaisis is the Rabbanon.
That's for... Where was it taken from?
The Arba Kaisis, the Chachamim were masakin Arba Kaisis. Because it was Man Chereseinu, there's different psukim that they learned it out from. Yeah. So the way the Shulchan Aruch Harav quotes it in Siman Taf Ayin Beis Hilchos Pesach is Yesh Oimrim that lechatchila the mitzvah is to drink the whole cup on Pesach, even if it has many reviyos. It's a large cup. I Kiddush of other Yom Tovim and Shabbos lechatchila it's enough a cheekful, which is roiva reviyos. But Dalet Kaisis of Pesach the Chachamim were machmir that lechatchila you should drink the entire cup. B'di'evid if you drink the majority of the cup you're yaitza. We see the Gemara says the ishtiru b'dekuset because that's a b'di'evid. In other words, according to this mahalach, lechatchila, it's not the majority. You got to drink the whole cup. If you only did the majority, since in halacha we say rubai kekulai, the majority is equal to the full. So we say you're yaitza with the majority, but the best thing is to do it kulai. But if you drank only a half a cup, even if it's 10 ounces, you're not yaitza according to this opinion. And then there's the second opinion. The second opinion is that even lechatchila, a roiv reviyus would be fine. That would mean around 1.6 or a little less than 3 ounces, even if the kais is big. And that is the second shitta, like the shitta of Tosfos. V'chein ikir, this is the primary shitta in the poskim, and the minig by many people. But nonetheless, it's very good to be stringent according to the first svara, and therefore you should take a smaller cup and drink the whole thing. And if the wine is very expensive, it's enough if you drink the majority. This is only the first 3 cups. The last cup, of course, you have to drink a full reviyus, so you should make a bracha achrona. And the chatchila, you should drink the reiv of the reviyus in one shot, in one drink, not 2 different gulps, which is why you shouldn't take a narrow cup where you can't drink it in one gulp, even though b'di'evid, if you took a break a few times, you yaitza, but make sure that from the beginning of drinking till the end of the drinking, you shouldn't...
What's the reason for that? The last one? What's the reason?
But basachas, it shouldn't be shteish siyas, the Ramasas.
Because of the bracha. I know, because...
No, even if you take a few breaks, you want to make sure that the time from the beginning of the drinking to the end of the drinking shouldn't be more than achilas pras. And of course, some say it shouldn't even be more than the time it takes to drink a reviyus, which is much shorter.
What's the reason for that?
Mitzad bracha achrona.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Sagt die Gemara weiter. Meisve. They asked a question on Shmuel. Arba kaises alalu. The Braisa says Arba kaises alalu tzarich sheben shir reviyus. K'dei reviyus. These 4 kaises need to have a shir reviyus. What do we mean they need a shir reviyus? That the 4 cups of wine need to have a revius of wine, which means a revius of raw wine, echad chai ve'echad mazug, whether it's raw or it is diluted. In other words, what he means is that you don't need to drink the wine when it's raw. You don't need every cup to have a revius of raw wine. It's fine if every cup has a fourth of a revius of wine and 3 parts water, right? So if you're going to use a cup of 4 ounces, right, you can have 1 ounce of wine and 3 ounces of water. It has to have a revius of wine, but the wine doesn't have to be a revius of raw wine. It could be also a revius of diluted wine. That's also a revius. As long as you have a revius of wine, even if it's mixed with water, that's good, whatever the revius is. Echad chadash, echad yashan. You could use new wine, you can use old wine, no difference. And as the Rashbam says, what he means is even if it's new wine and it didn't ferment for long, so it doesn't have a strong taste of wine, or even if it's very old wine, and in this case it became weaker, it's still good. All wines are good. Rabbi Yehuda says, Tzarich sheyeh by tama mariyai. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you need to have the taste of wine, the look of wine, the gaze of wine, the mara, the appearance of wine. In other words, as the Rashbam says, Rabbi Yehuda means you have to have marayayin, that it should be red wine, it should have the look of wine, and the tam of wine means it should have a strong taste. Ktani miyas, but what do we see from this brayse? It says kedei reviyas, that the 4 cups need kedei reviyas va'at amrit kos yafa. But you said before in Shmuel that all the 4 cups need the amount of wine of 1 cup of benching, all the 4, which is much less. So the Gemara says, Amri idividi chat shiurehu. Both is 1 shear. My kedei mezigas yafa dekama lechol chad v'chad aval l'kul reviyas. He didn't mean all 4 cups together should have 1 revius of diluted wine. What he meant was each one should have a revius. So between all 4, you're going to have a full revius of undiluted wine. Because if you have in each one a fourth of a revius of undiluted wine, so with all 4, you're going to have a revius of undiluted wine. Rabbi Yehuda says, Sarich sheyeh ta'am mara. You need the flavor and you need the appearance. Amar Rav my timer. Rabbi Yehuda, the pasuk says in Mishlei, Al teirayin kiyis adam. Don't put your eyes on wine, which is red, kiyis adam, when it's red, because it's very addictive. The pasuk in Mishlei is telling a person to be careful from becoming addicted to wine because it's red and it's very appealing and very attractive, and it can cause you to become intoxicated and inebriated, which is not a good way in life, a good path in life. What do we learn from here? We learn from here is that stam yayin is yis adam, if it's strong, intoxicating, and red. And from here, Rabbi Yehuda learns that this is the type of wine that we have to use for the arba kaisis. This is the type of wine that we use for the arba kaisis. Yis Adam. How do they translate ki Yis Adam?
It's red.
It's red, yeah, it's red. You're saying that it's going to bring you down to Adama. Okay, yeah. Yeah, and basically, the halacha in Shulchan Aruch is, in Siman Tafayim base, fascinating that it's a mitzvah to use red wine by the Seder. Unless the white wine is better, it's a mitzvah to use red wine based on this pasuk, Al Teira Yayin Ki Yis Adam, that the chshivas of wine is when it's red. Right? Even though by Kiddush, there's many shittas that you don't have to look for red wine unless it's better than the white wine, right? But nonetheless, by the Dalit Kaisis, many of the Paiskim say you should use the red wine, unless the white is better. But if the white is not better, if it's equal or worse, you should certainly use the red wine. Right? Another reason is that it's a zecher for the blood with which Paro shechted Jewish children. The interesting thing I should add is that the Taz in Shulchan Aruch writes here a clause, and the Shulchan Aruch Hanav brings it, and he says that now, because of the blood libels in Eastern Europe, we do not take red wine for Pesach. So the Taz Rabbeinu David Segel, who wrote a commentary on Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo writes, go get red wine for Pesach, based on this Shita. The Taz, who's living in the 17th century in Poland, in Eastern Europe, and the Shulchan Aruch Harav, who's living in the 18th century in Belarus, in White Russia, both write, now with all of the blood libels, he says, the blood libels against us are common, and we know which blood libels, that they're slaughtering Christian children and using their blood for matzah. We do not use red wine for Pesach. This is fascinating. Because we don't want anything red on the Seder table, which can, God forbid, give room to the accusations that the Jews are slaughtering children for Pesach. We know the Bayless trial was one of the last great blood libel trial, or the last one, in 1911. Mendel Bayless, who was the head of a brick factory in Kiev, was accused of murdering a child. They found a few days before Pesach, Tofresh Ayin Aleph, I think 1911, near Kiev in the Ukraine. They found a kid in a pit, a Christian kid, I think 14 or 13 years old, stabbed to death, and he was killed. And they blamed Mendel Bayless, who was a Jew, a father of 5, came from a Hasidic family. I don't know if he himself was religious. And they put him in prison. He languished there for years until the great trial, the Mendel Bayless trial, which was an international phenomenon. And during those 2 years, the propaganda against the Jewish people was terrifying. And many Jews couldn't. They were scratching their heads. How can it be that in the 20th century people should still believe this? Of course, today, after the Holocaust and everything else, we're not so naive. But in 1911, Jews really thought that the Enlightenment and progress has obliterated the lies of anti-Semitism for good. But it's fascinating that the Poskim say in the later centuries not to take red wine because of this reason.
Does the Lubavitch have any kind of minhag to respect what the Alter Rebbe said, that they use white wine?
No. Of course, it was only because of the blood libels.
Yeah.
So Baruch Hashem, today we don't have to. I never heard that.
Is there anything wrong using white wine?
It's not nothing wrong. It just says mitzvah lechazer achayayin adam. Mitzvah lechazer achayayin. It's not about the color, I think. Or you're saying if it's about the blood, then it's about the color. But if it's about the fact that it's red, l'chayda adding doesn't help. It depends how you learn the svara. If you learn mitzad al teri yayin kiyas adam, so it has to be red be'etzem. If it's mitzad the svara of zeichel adam, then you could put in a few drops of red.
Tanya said not to drink it because of zeichel, the color, right? I mean,
he's saying in our days we don't take red wine. He doesn't say it as halach. He says the fact is the Jews are not doing it.
Right.
He puts it in Shulchan Aruch because it was relevant. It was a warning. Right. Without red wine, yeah, you're right. If it was white wine, the dam was a different dam. You're right. They had no choice. The point is, they had no choice. It was an issue of pikuach nefesh, and it was simply a simple hazard. You never knew who's breaking into the house, what they're going to see, who's the guest, who's informing. It was just, it's buying red wine, it's selling red wine. It's just the red around Pesach was a travesty, was a nightmare. It's hard even to describe how many Jews died, were killed because of this stupid, over the generations. I mean, the amounts of Jews who were tortured and persecuted and hung and burnt and killed because of mamash, something that it's not like, at the Bayless trial. Fake news, beyond fake news. The Rabbi of Moscow, Rabbi Yaakov Maza, in the trial of Bayless, he said an amazing line. Bayless was exonerated. They found Bayless innocent. He's buried here. Mendel Bayless is buried here. Yeah. He went there to Israel, and then he didn't work out. He came to New York. He died. I think he's buried in the Bronx. Mendel Bayless, yeah. He died in the 1930s. This all happened 1911, 12, 13. So Rabbi Yaakov Maza, the Rabbi of Moscow, said in the trial, he said that, how many eggs do you use to make a cake? 4 eggs, 6 eggs. He says, any Jewish woman in the whole world, or any Jewish man or child in the whole world, opens an egg, and they see a little blutstrop, a little koire dam, a little drop of blood, and all the eggs, it may be their only eggs, and it all goes to the garbage. Even though this is going to be the only cake they're going to have for Shabbos and Yom Tov, the eggs go to the garbage, because if they were mixed and there's one drop of blood, and we know where that comes from, Comes because the egg, of course, the egg would have morphed into a chick. It would have hatched a chicken. So there's a little, and you're telling me that they bake their matzah with Christian blood, a bloodstrap from a chick they can't deal with. That's what he said. He said, well, this is a mockery. It's a mockery of truth, of justice. Lepoil Bayless was exonerated. He was found innocent. Okay, Zog the Gemara weiter. Tana Rabban, the rabbis taught Hakel Chayavin Barba Kaisus Halalu. Everybody is obligated to drink the 4 cups of wine. Echad Anoshim, Echad Noshim, Echad Tinoikus. Men, women, and children. Men, women, and children. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, can anybody explain to me what's the benefit of children drinking wine? Like, who would make such a takana? So this is fascinating. What did Tanakama mean? Tanakama meant that children have to do arba kais because they were also liberated from Egypt. And they were part of the Gzeira. Children were being killed. So they also were liberated. They have to drink 4 kaises. Comes Rabbi Yehuda and says, what's the benefit? So the Rashbam explains that what Rabbi Yehuda is saying is that you should not obligate children to drink 4 cups of wine because they're exempt from mitzvahs. The Rashbam, the last Rashbam, halipturim min mitzvahs, which basically means that the Rashbam holds that Rabbi Yehuda was talking about children who are pater from mitzvahs, even from the mitzvah of chinuch, because they're little babies, they're little kids, which means that Tanakama holds that even babies are mechuyev in arba kaises. That's the chiddush, which Rabbi Yehuda challenged. In other words, Rashbam says, Rabbi Yehuda says, why shouldn't you give it to children? We do everything with our children. They bench, they daven, they say Kriyat Shema. The answer is because they're pater from mitzvahs, but we're obligated to educate. Chinuch, so that means he's talking about the age that's before chinuch, a very young age. And that's why he says there's no point in them drinking wine. It's not a mitzvah. They're pater from all the mitzvahs, which would mean that Tanakama holds a gewaldike chiddush, that on Pesach, even children before the age of formal education would be obligated to drink the wine. Ad kedei kach, because the miracle was so connected to them as well. And as the Medrash says, Hey mikiru tchila, that by the Yam Suf, they're the ones who recognized God first because of what they experienced in Egypt, right? Which is why the whole Seder is for them. So some of the poskim say that from this sugya is mashma that even children before chinuch should drink the 4 cups of wine. However, many other Rishonim say no. Tanakama was talking about children who have already reached the age of chinuch, which means the older, just like we educate them with other mitzvahs, he's saying we should also educate them with the 4 cups of wine. So there's a big argument how you learn the Gemara. And still Rabbi Yehuda says that even 10-year-old kids shouldn't drink the 4 cups of wine. Why? Because it's not meaningless. It's meaningless for them. So even as chinuch, you shouldn't do it. That is, thank you. That is the shitta of the other Rishonim, and that's the halacha in Shulchan Aruch, that only children who higia lechinuch are mechuyev in arba kaises, like the second interpretation of the Gemara. But this is a fascinating interpretation that Tanakama would hold that even little babies are mechuyev to drink 4 cups of wine, right? But according to the second interpretation, he's talking about children who higia lechinuch, and still Rabbi Yehuda says there's no inyan in being mechanech kids to drink 4 cups of wine when it's not going to do anything for them. What's an 8-year-old kid need to drink 4 cups of wine? So what should you do? Ella, he says, let me tell you what to do. Much better idea for the Seder. Mechalken lehen kloyos ve'goizen berev Pesach. Distribute to them kloyos. Kloyos is scorched wheat. Did I say that right? Parched grain. Geprajete veitz. Parched grain, which was like a snack, a treat. Ve'goizen nuts. Berev Pesach kadesh lo yishnu. So they don't fall asleep. V'yishalu, and they'll ask the questions of Manishtanas. Rabbi Yehuda says, give the children joy, but not through wine. Adults can appreciate a cup of wine. Children will not appreciate the cup of wine. Instead, give them treats. This will give them more joy. It will make them alert. It will keep them up. They won't fall asleep, and they'll ask all the questions that you need to ask.
Maybe that's why we do Afikonim.
And the Rambam says, one second, you're right, and the Rambam says that this will be one of the questions. In other words, by giving them the nuts, they're going to say, why are you giving us nuts? This itself, it's not only it's going to keep them up, so they'll ask other questions. This itself will be one of the questions. Amru Allah Rabbi Akiva, they said about Rabbi Akiva, listen to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is the Gadol Ador, he has 24,000 Talmidim, but you know what he's doing? Rabbi Akiva would distribute parched grain and nuts to children of Pesach. They shouldn't fall asleep and they should ask. They should be alert, they should be ecstatic, they should be excited, they should be up. Rabbi Akiva didn't say, he could have sent a shliach. Yeah, he could have called over one of the yeshiva bachim and say, here, go distribute. So for Rabbi Akiva had gepasst, that he himself, the greatest man of the generation, should go to children and give the children kloyos and egoism. You'll see sometimes the greatest of the great want direct contact with the children. They don't start sending to the children. To children, loved giving to children. Yeah. Right. It looks like Erev Pesach at night, right, or a little before the Seder. I guess you gotta keep it going. You gotta keep it going before they get to sleep. Right before they get to sleep. Tanya, we have a Brais. Rebbe Lezer says. Now the next line, I'm warning you, created a lot of controversy. Choitfin matzahs b'leilei psachim. Rebbe Lezer said, you grab matzahs on the night of Pesach, b'shviltin noikas for the children, shaloi yishnu, they should not sleep. What did Rebbe Lezer mean? You grab matzahs on the night of Pesach. And this is where the interpretations varied from one extreme to another extreme. Rashi brings two interpretations. Interpretation number one, chaytfin matzah, is you pick up the kaira before eating. You pick up the kaira, you remove the plate, you grab the matzah, so the children will say, why? Second interpretation of Rashi, chaytfin matzah, is you eat fast. Chaytfin matzah, you grab the matzah, meaning you eat it in a very fast fashion so that they don't fall asleep. Don't waste time. Don't extend the meal for too long. That's the two interpretations of Rashi, what chaytfin is. So the first interpretation is you move away. You move away the kair, and second interpretation is you eat fast. The Rashbam brings another interpretation. He says when you eat a lot, you get exhausted. So that way, after the children ate a little matzah, you grab it, you take it away from them so they shouldn't eat too much, so they won't fall asleep. They won't fall asleep. That's the Rashbam's interpretation. So Rashi's interpretation was like we do before the Manashtana, you move away the plate. So they're going to say, why are you moving away the plate? But this pshat is that that you take it away early, prematurely. Comes the Rambam, and he quotes this Gemara, and he says, no, chaytfim matzah zemizeh. You grab it from each other. And some Rishonim use the word goizlin, maram chalva, goizlin. You steal it from each other. You create like a game. I grab from you, you grab from me. And the Chak Yaakov says this is the source for the minig of stealing the Afrikaim. This is Gemara. Chaytfin matzahs. So the Rambam says you grab from each other. Some Rishonim say the adults grab from the children, right? Chaytfin matzahs b'shvil tenoikis. But this morphed into the custom that the children grab and steal, so to speak, the matzah from the adults. And once that happens, they're not going to give it back anymore. Unless you will reward them with a handsome prize. In those days, maybe it was another walnut. When I was growing up, the Rothschilds got a calculator or a Parker pen. The simple ones got potato chips. Today, basically, for the Afrikaiman, the running compensation is a Lamborghini or a BMW or at least a private yacht. And if you can't afford that, a private jet. Or if you're very poor, the highest, most expensive gadget that exists. A drone also works b'di'evet. If you try to give your child a calculator these days for an Afrikaiman, I'm not sure he will be on speaking terms with you. It's a shtickle problem. The Gemara never says to steal the Afrikaiman. The Gemara says chaytfin. It morphed into it. The Chak Yaakov says this is where the minig started. I should say there are some poskim who say that this minig should be bottle. It doesn't make sense. You're teaching children to steal. I even once saw a sefer in Ma'ir quoted in Archas Chaim, and he says that the Goyim are saying that the night of our freedom we teach our children to steal as a zecher to Vayinatzlu es Mitzrayim. They emptied out Egypt and they took everything. We're teaching them the same thing, and he says you should not do this minhag. I think in Brisk, Leitaka would not do the minig. I saw Reb Shlomo Zalman Oyabach would announce before the Seder that This is the minig that many people do, but we don't do it. In the Chabad Haggadah, the Lubavitcher Rebbe writes that there's such a minig, but it's not in the houses of their Rebbes. They would not do the minig. It happened once that one of the children stole. So there were indeed many G'dayla Yisrael who did not allow this minig to happen, but many homes do the minig, and the source is in this type of, cops and robbers, hide and seek, game, ecstasy, fun, and a lot of vibrancy and excitement at the Seder. The point is, you don't want them to fall asleep, you want them to be participants in the Seder. Which is why I always say, and I spoke about this yesterday in the Shir, that the main focus of the Seder is to bond with the children. Not to say everything you have to say, it's a beautiful thing, the main focus is to bond emotionally and physically with each one of the children.
Does it say anywhere to set aside matzah for the afikoman? It's the last thing you're supposed to eat at the Seder to end up with a taste of?
That's going to be later. That's what we're going to do later.
That's not the function of this?
No. Grabbing. That would be putting away. Chaytva means to grab. Tanya, we learned to Braisa.
One kasha of the 4 questions, not about the wine and not about the dozen.
What do you mean about the wine? What the wine? You're saying, why doesn't the Manishtana include that we drink 4 cups of wine tonight? Manishtana, interesting question. Why don't we ask Manishtana, Halayla Hazah, that we drink 4 cups of wine unlike any other night of the year? Especially according to the view that children should also drink. Mele Rabbi Yehuda holds they don't drink, but if you say that children also drink, so that should have been one of the questions of the Manishtana. Not only matzah, marer, mesubin, and matbilin, but also the question of dalit kaises.
Sometimes people drank 4 cups during the regular year.
Maybe the Ashik makes the cold look down.
That could be. First of all, Isaac, that itself is a good question to ask on Pesach. So now you ask a 5th question, but it could be that could be to say that the other ones b'chol haleilos einon matbilin, right? B'chol haleilos oichlin chametz. B'chol haleilos yesh mitzvah. It could be that drinking. We see from the Gemara that at every meal they basically used to drink wine, or at least very, very common. So maybe it wasn't such a recognizable thing. Like matzah is a new thing. There's no chametz in the house, right? The idea that everything is reclined is a new thing, the same as matbilin. But the wine, they would always drink wine. Yes, it wouldn't be 4 cups in this order, so maybe that's one explanation, that it wasn't such an uncommon thing. By us, it's a little less common, maybe.
Especially right after Purim.
Huh? You're saying right after Purim? Tanya, we learned in the Braisa. Amru alava Rabbi Akiva. They said about Rabbi Akiva. Listen to this. Miyamav layamar. In his entire life, he never said higia eis lamadu beis hamedrash. It's time to stand up and leave the beis medrash. He never ever said that. He never said chevre. It's time to go. Chutz twice a year. Erev Pesachim and Erev Yom Kippurim. Twice a year, Rabbi Akiva would stand up and say chevre. It's time to close the Gemara. Erev Pesach, b'shvil tenoikus kadesh lo yishnu. Erev Pesach, he would stop learning and go home. For the children, they shouldn't fall asleep. As the Rashbam says, he wanted that all the students should go home and give their kids a nap during the day, so they should be able to be up at night. That's how the Rashbam learns this. So he sent everybody away from the Beis Medrash, that they should be able to put their kids to sleep by day, give them a nap, and that way they'll be able to be up at night. So Tosfos asks, he says, "V'loy nehira atu lo yuchlu lishon b'loy avihem." Why can't the mothers give them a nap? Why do the fathers have to go home to give them a nap? I know the reason, because kids don't like to go to sleep by day. You need Tati to come in. So Tosfos gives a second reason, which the Rashbam also brings, and that is that they used to stay Yom Tov at night to learn. And that's Pshat. Rabbi Akiva said, we're not staying, you got to go home early. You got to make sure you're home right before Yom Tov starts so that the kids could be initiated into the Seder. The second day was Erev Yom Kippur, as b'neihem. He wanted everybody to go home to make sure that their children have enough food before the fast of Yom Kippur. He was afraid they're going to come home too late and they're going to have to rush the meal and the kids will be starving and the fast will be very difficult. So therefore, twice a year, Erev Pesach, Erev Yom Kippur, Rabbi Akiva would say, it's time to get up and go. And the Gemara concludes this sugya, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Chayev Adam l'sameach banav b'nei beis beregel. You're obligated to rejoice, to give joy to your children and family on Yom Tov. Shenemar, the pasuk says in Re'eh, "V'samachta b'chagecha, ata uvincha, uvitecha, avdecha v'amoscha." You have to give joy to your family on Yom Tov. B'mem esamcham, how? B'yayin, through giving them wine. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, wrong. Anoshim b'roya lehem, v'noshim b'roya lehem. You give joy to men through giving them that which is suitable for them, and you bring joy to women by giving them that which is suitable to them. Anoshim b'roya lehem, what's for when? Yayin, wine. V'noshim b'mai. How do you bring more joy to the wives? Tani Reb Yosef, beBavel in Babylonia, bevigdei tziv'oinen. Buy them colored clothing. Be'eretz Yisrael, they weren't into colored clothing, bebigdei pishton meguhatzin, which are pressed linen clothing. In other words, the point is the style that they cherish, the type of clothes they appreciate, the type of gift that will bring them joy. Do it in a way that's suitable to them, that will give them simcha for Yom Tov. So before Yom Tov, you buy them these clothes so that they could rejoice on Yom Tov.
But the men have to buy wine anyway.
He's talking about every Yom Tov, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot.
The price of wine on Pesach.
Yeah. And this is fascinating because it's basically a mitzvah min HaTorah that I have to ask myself before Yom Tov, what am I doing to bring simcha to myself and to my spouse and to all my children? That's a question that the Torah says, "V'samachta b'chagecha ato bincha." What are you buying your spouse? To buy something, we see clearly it has to be simcha b'roya lehem. That's going to be suitable for them. Whether it's a piece of jewelry, whether it's a cloak, it's a garment, etc. Right now, v'samachta b'chagecha, before Pesach, before Shavuos, before Sukkot, yeah, it's a mitzvah sasim in HaTorah. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda ben Seira said, "Bisman shebeis hamikdash kayim, when the Beis Hamikdash stood, ein simcha ela b'basar. Simcha can happen only through the meat of the karbanos. Shenemar v'zavachta shlamim v'achalta sham v'samachta lefnei Hashem Elokecha. You will slaughter shlamim and eat it there and rejoice before God." Now it's interesting, this pasuk is not talking about Yom Tov. It's talking about when the Jews passed the Jordan and they went into Eretz Yisrael, they had to build an altar by Mount Avel and shecht karbanos shlamim and eat it and rejoice. But, since the Torah says v'samachta b'chagecha, and we see here that the Torah says that when you shecht shlamim v'samachta lefnei Hashem Elokecha, so we compare the two and we say that the simcha, when we makriv the karbanos of Yom Tov, we were called shalmei simcha, they would always bring karbanos of shlamim on every Yom Tov. That's how you have simcha. V'achshav she'ein Beis Hamikdash kayam. We don't have a Beis Hamikdash, we can't do the karbanos. Ein simcha ela b'yayin, shenemar v'yayin yisamach levav enesh. Joy happens only through wine. As the pasuk says in Tehillim, wine will bring joy to the heart of man, and as a result of that, today we say the simcha is b'yayin. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, it was ein simcha ela b'basar. But today, the mitzvah of simchas Yom Tov you fulfill for men, according to Rabbi Yehuda, for men through yayin. That's how we do it today. We drink a revius of wine, at least a revius of wine on Yom Tov. Less than a revius is not called drinking. Rabbi Yitzchak said, okay.
So that's the mice.
Yeah.
Yain and basar.
Yeah. Well, Bisman Beis Hamikdash basar. Bisman today's done. We learned in the Likud Torah Parsha Shmini what's pshat ein simcha le basar, right? Halas habasar. There's no simcha like elevating the flesh, bringing the olul back to the ilah. There's no simcha. The carbon, what was the carbon? It took the meat and it made it dreich nechayach. It became divine. That's the great simcha of the Beis Hamikdash, to take the basar and elevate it. And today we do it with the yayin. Kiddush, l'chaim, etc.
Does it say anything about the alcohol content for the wine for Pesach?
Well, Rabbi Yehuda said it should be tam, just like he says it should be red. He says it should be a strong wine.
So that implies
Good cap.
Yeah. Oh. Everybody have a wonderful day and a lot of hatzlacha. Sei moichen de imme und sei moichen de abba.